When people say was like, I would never wear that, I'm just like, wow, there's such a limitation that you have set around yourself. You might not wear it exactly as I'm wearing it, but you can explore in how you, as Sharon, would want to wear it. Because
Wow.
what's happening, what I realize, like, I love it, but I would never wear it. But I love it. And I think the first thing when you know you like something is you love it. So
Yeah.
that I would always want to explore, well, if you love it, then why are we centering a limitation into who you are as opposed to having a sense of curiosity? So my whole thing when it comes to fashion really is to have people look within as opposed from outside.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Thrive with Sharon podcast. I'm Sharon Land. I'm a holistic psychotherapist, a mystic, a speaker, and a recently best-selling author. And I am so excited to continue this season 3, which has been absolute, like the people that have come on for season 3, I mean, not downing any of the other seasons, are just so rich. And I just recently met this beautiful human being about a month ago, probably less than a month ago, through our mutual friend, Sam Joy. And at one of my favorite places in Denver, Colorado. Um, and it was Doug Casina's art gallery. And um, this beautiful human being, Koya Nyangi, is an entrepreneur and she's a speaker and she's a beautiful creative. And I honestly, like, I could have sat and listened to her speak the entire time. Um, but she's also a creative director, a fashion writer, a cutting edge stylist, a cultural producer. And she also serves as the CEO and founder of Let Me Show You Different. And in that, she's an advocate for ushering African fashion to a global audience. And she works on advancing the African fashion landscape. And honestly, that's all I want to say so far in our introduction, because I just can't wait for all of you to start to hear directly from Koya. Koya, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here.
Oh my God, Sharon, I am extremely, extremely humbled to be on this podcast. And you just said everybody from season 3 is rich. So, oh my God, I feel like such a tall order, but thank you so, so much. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I'm looking forward to us chatting and meeting you. Very, very briefly, we just had this really great connection, and you were like, "Oh, we're community," and I was like, "I am down with community every single time."
Yes. I got that sense from you immediately when we met, which was so lovely to be able to actually meet in person. Um, but it was a beautiful crowd that we had, an audience that we had there, but the intentionality behind it was palpable. And to hear you speak, right? It was really about the intersectionality of so many different things, right? But in this moment, in that at that time, it was really about addressing how you show up in the world and what are the barriers, right? Through
Yep.
how we express ourselves, right? Especially with clothing and the rules that we give ourselves for whatever reason. And I loved some of your perspective. So can you tell me what drove you to start the conversation that way? You actually like had people fill out a question. Like there was no hiding, by the way. There's literally no hiding. I called myself out on my paper. But like tell me, was that the first time that you've done something like that, or what? Tell me more about that. I know there's more behind that.
I work in fashion, and I started my career in fashion as a stylist.
Mm.
And then you get to work with people and you start to realize, and even in conversation, when you're in dialogue with your friends, or you overhear conversations with people when they're shopping, Or even when the comments that people will give you as they're shopping, it's always like, oh my God, you look so good. I would never wear that. Or
Yeah.
like, I would never pull that off. Oh, red is not a good color on me. And it's like, oh, I have to lose some weight and then I can wear this. Or like, oh, I'm just shopping for this particular thing. And then so it's one of those things that I'm always very confused about, but also understand as well in the whole thing. So I think I started the whole conversation because when it comes to fashion and when I moved to this country, I'm from Kenya. So I maybe with privilege or without, I didn't my sense of fashion didn't start because I was reading Vogue magazine or I was reading I don't know what magazine. I didn't have sort of like what to look at, which I think is the most incredible thing.
Yeah.
I just was just going by how I felt and what I wanted to wear. So it was never, these are the colors of the season. This is what we're wearing. This is what we're wearing. This is for summer. This is for fall. Like no one was telling me what to wear or
Right.
what not to wear. So then because no one was telling me what not to wear, it allowed me to be very, very curious and just go with the flow of whatever it is. But then when I moved here, I realized people sort of like would know, oh, this is the colors we're wearing, this is what we're wearing for fall, this is what we're wearing. And so you would buy clothes depending on the seasons or who it just felt like someone was telling people what they needed to do. And
Yeah.
what that does is it removes you from you. So the
Mm,
curiosity of you comes from an external source as opposed to an internal source. So when people say it was like, I would never wear that, I'm just like, wow, there's such a limitation that you have set around yourself. You may not wear it exactly as I'm wearing it, but you can explore in how you as Sharon would want to wear it.
wow.
Because what's happening, what I realize, like I love it, but I would never wear it. But I love it. And I think the first thing when you know you like something is you love it. So
Yeah.
that I would always want to explore, well, if you love it, then why are we centering a limitation into who you are as opposed to having a sense of curiosity? So my whole thing when it comes to fashion really is to have people look within as opposed from outside. I don't know how many times I've said this, but I will continuously keep
Probably have to say it a lot. Yeah.
yeah, because it's an honoring of who you are when you look within, because within will guide you as opposed to outside, because outside you're just constantly looking for clues and you're looking for, oh my God, that's a cute, maybe I should wear that. Oh my God, maybe I should wear that. So it's constantly like I should, but you haven't explored it, and then you don't know who you are. And I think in life, I think we're constantly trying to know who we are. And fashion is such a great tool to know who you are.
Yes.
It also tells when you're sad, you're mad, you're angry, and it channels all of that. And if you are aware of who you are, then you'll get to know more about who you are through clothing.
Yes. And so I think it's so fascinating because you're literally the walking, living, breathing version, probably without making the decision to be, for the message that you're bringing forward. And it's just come so organically and naturally to you. Like you said, it wasn't like you were flipping through Vogue magazine when you were back home, right? And deciding how you were going to express yourself. It just, you had this knowing, you had this guidance of like, hey, I want to try this, or I want to pull this together, or whatever it is. Um, and then fast forward to now, and your history up until now of being in this work. And you said something that's so powerful and it's so important, which is an honoring of self. And we never really truly honor ourselves when we're looking for something outside of ourselves to tell us about ourselves,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And um, so that is such a powerful nuance for anyone in any work, any line of work, and really just service, right? Because I don't really want to say work, it's more service, right? That, and you did this with me when we first started. I was just like helping you to get ready, and you were just like, but wait a second, tell me about you, right? You were like, what are you excited about? What are you working on? What's like if you were to just express yourself in like just one statement, what would it be? And I was like, that's an honoring, right? And so you're not telling me about me. You're not looking at me and saying, oh, well, you're this and you're that, and reading me, right? You're saying, I'm here with you, and I want you to share with me more about you. And then I'm going to help to bring more of that alive. Um, we can do that in any way that we serve. I try and do that all the time, with people who I serve, right? And it all first comes from realizing that we are also sacred, right? And so that honoring of self says, if you love it, wear it.
Yes.
If you
Yes.
love it,
Yeah.
utilize it, right? Express it, whatever it is. No filters.
Yes. Yeah. It's about giving yourself permission. I don't think we do a good job of giving ourselves permission because we are constantly thinking about what somebody else is saying or what somebody else is going to be thinking or how do I need to show up because how is everybody else showing up? I mean, when I named this company, Let Me Show You Different. And now when I think about it, I'm like, it's let me show you different is it's a mentality. It is a lifestyle. It
Yeah.
is going against the norm. And our sort of like tagline is be bold, be brave, and be different. Because when you are going against the grain, when you're dressing up in the way that you want to dress up, it takes a lot of be bold. It takes a lot to be brave. It takes a lot of being different. And being different is one of the things that we're not so used to being different because we want to do exactly how everybody is doing their thing. It takes braveness in being different. It takes braveness in going against the grain. It takes braveness in showing up in your clothing the way you want to show up. It takes giving yourself permission. Sometimes I'll dress up and someone would be like, no one's dressing up. And I'm like, it's okay. I will be dressing up. I am not looking around the room to see how everybody else will
Right.
be up. I just want to know that I'm showing up as Koya Nyangi, wants to show up. That there's the essence in me in saying this is how I want to present myself to the world. And so that's how I come about. So I'm not thinking about who and like all these things in our head that we're always trying to please. It is to a certain degree, and then when there's a certain degree where you go over and above, where you realize I am not living my life authentically and I'm living it through the gaze of other people.
Oh, it's so interesting because, I'm always reflecting back to the things that I know as you're talking, right? And I hope that everybody else is really resonating with what you're saying. I know that they are. Um, and I think to some of what I do know, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I know in studies now is that there is a direct correlation between the belief that we are here to please other people, right? Before we understand who we are and where we're pleasing from, right? And there's a direct line to disease, to physical disease, right? And
Yeah.
emotional disease when it comes to that. So so when you say that, I think that sometimes, we can always spin it off in some sort of extreme where it's just like be different. And I think sometimes people are different just because they don't want to be like that, right? Whatever that is. But you're saying be bold, be brave to be who you are. And
Yes.
something so powerful to show up in a world where sometimes you're the only one who's thinking these things, you're the
Yeah.
only one who's dressing these ways, or saying a word, whatever it is, sometimes you're the only one, and it's okay, but you're called to show up that way, right?
Yeah.
And that's where you're being different. You're being different for the sake of being yourself, right? And that it's like the brilliance of a kaleidoscope.
Yeah.
Everything is gorgeous, but if everything were the same, then we wouldn't see the dimension, right?
Oh my God, you couldn't have summed that in the most perfect and beautiful way. Yes, totally
Yeah.
agree. Yes. It
Oh,
is that. I mean, it's such a, and it's showing up different. It's showing up in the difference in your way, you know? It's how you feel that it's honoring who you are. It's just really just being authentic to who you are, and just being like, you know what, I'm just gonna, this is who I want, who I am, and this is how I want to be. And it there's no ill will to anybody else. And I think for fashion, not I think 100%, fashion is a vibration. It's done the right way, it's such a good vibration. And if it's a good energy, it seeps on other people, because every single time you look good, people kind of like just like gravitate towards you, and they're like, wow, I like this, I like this, I like this. And that is joy. That is a spreading of joy, and you spread joy and you have joy as well.
yes. Oh my gosh, that's right. I mean, joy is meant to be shared, and I think that we can express that through our fashion. I mean, and for anybody who is on Spotify or YouTube, you can absolutely see the expression. I mean, your just everything. First of all, your smile, your face is all you need, right? But there are all of these just subtle layers of all of this beautiful. Now, I would never have picked up a magazine and
Yeah.
had a how-to on how to come dressed as you are right now. But it's perfect because it's you, it's the expression, it's the nuance, it's the movement, it's all of the different, patterns and colors and shapes, and and it makes me smile, right? Like as soon as I saw you, I was like, oh, I knew it. I knew that I was going to be beaming from the inside out, because that's what I remembered about our first meeting, is just you and your energy. What you emit is just so powerful. And
Yeah.
you attracted people directly to you, and you could see the people who you had affected in the way that you were communicating. And not just to talk just about that event, but it's my reference point that there were people who were so grateful that there was something that they could go to where they could actually express themselves more, right?
Yes.
Many people said, I'm so glad that you had this, because I actually got to be more me today than I've been in most of the places and rooms that I've been able to show up in
It's
recently.
it's 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 such a, you know, you think that some of these things are very obvious, right? Like it should be an obvious thing, but it is not. And I think it goes back again to communion is such an important thing. And sometimes when you show up in your authentic self, then somebody else, when they see you, then they feel that they have been given permission as well, that
Yeah.
without knowing that you have given them. The body is the most debatable thing, and also the one thing that we are given. You know, we come into this world with one thing, which is our body, and then we leave with our body.
Mm.
And you have got to love it. You have got to look at it, even if sometimes it does a thing that you are not happy about, if it fluctuates and it moves in a way that you are not sure about. It is the one thing that has been given to you. Everything else you buy, you work so hard to buy a house, you work to buy cars and all these other things. But if you have the body, then you get to put on it whatever that you want to. And I think if you see yourself in terms of, this is my property, and then I will adorn it however I want to adorn it, it gives you a sense of liberation. And if somebody has sort of been confined and cannot see themselves, and then they see you, it also liberates. So fashion for me gives vibration, and it liberates people. It
Mm.
allows people to just have a sense of freedom. And I think we are all wanting freedom. Freedom feels like, oh, and people like, you know, freedom, when freedom is taken away, you can feel it. But sometimes we cage ourselves And we should give ourselves freedom to be whoever we want. Sometimes people have told us, hey, you should not wear red. That is now your color. Or you should not wear those pants because you don't look too good. Or you put yourself in a cage for like, oh my God, my stomach is not doing, like, it's not flat enough. My hands are wobbly. All these things, I am not perfect, but yet you are perfection in your own one body.
Yes, I completely agree. And I would love to ask you, because you definitely are here to globally merge, right, into this whole movement. And because of the fact that you have a global lens, can you speak into the cultural context of body image, right?
Yes.
They're
I mean,
different.
growing up, which is one of my favorite questions because it takes me back home. I think growing up as an African, and I'm from Kenya, so growing up, it's a sense of liberation. I mean, everybody's wearing color. People are coming dressed to the nines. We have a thing in Kenya where, like, when I'm leaving in the house in the morning, like I'm leaving, and half the times it's like I'm dressed in a way. I'm like, why are you dressed? I'm like, you never know. We have a thing. You never know. You never know is like you are staying ready just in case it's 5 o'clock and someone is like, yo, there's like an event over here. So you need to be ready for the event because you're not trying to go back and forth, right? Like, we stay ready. We constantly fly. I mean, we'll wear the jewelry. I mean, if you think about African culture and you think about how African culture has influenced the global world, all the species and all this jewelry and all these hats and all these colors and all these patterns, it has like the roots in it from Africa. When you think about the royals, the kings, and all the chiefdoms, and every single before colonization came, I mean, we were dressed. We still are. People would talk about their wealth in terms of like the gold that they would put in the jewelry that they would wear, the gold that they would adorn themselves. It was a symbol of status. So going back, Africans have just been dressing for like the longest time. And why I work very hard to give African designers a space into the global world is because not a lot of people know about African designers. And African designers are doing so much incredible work and such great and producing such beautiful, innovative textiles and designs. And yet, I feel like when I ask someone, do you know any African brand or designer, they're just like, oh my God, I don't know anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, interesting. But I sometimes look at people and I'm like, well, what you're wearing has an influence of Africa that has been taken from Africa. There's an
Yeah.
influence of it. So I work very hard to have the African continent, be at par and have people recognize and celebrate the designers and have them have a seat at the table, because it's been so long that they've not had a seat at the table, yet they have been able to inform the fashion.
100%. Right.
Yes.
Exactly. It's
Yes.
like the fashion world has launched itself, like you said, based off of the foundation of African fashion. So why wouldn't there be at least equal seat, if not lead seat at that,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
So, and now you have all this global designers who lived in, let's say, in Kenya, I mean, whatever, Nigeria, whatever, who came or who came here to school and have gone back home and are sort of creating this like new fashion. It's sort of like a tradition and a modernity, and fusing it and coming up with like sort of like a new style.
mhm.
And so if anybody loves like interesting fashion, I always point them to like see amazing designers like Musso Maxwell, I mean Kiko Romeo. You have like beautiful jewelry from Adele Dijac. You've got such incredible designers who really their work as well is sustainable. Like when designers right now in the West are thinking about, oh, how are we going to be sustainable designers? You have designers in Africa who inherently create brands that are already sustainable, because in the lack, which is also in the abundance, we know how to transform the little that we have into magnificent gems.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And that kind of leads me into the next question. Can you tell I'm excited? So, which is, what does it mean to be a creative? Right? You kind of just answered that. But like, I want to know more because I know there's way more in there for you. Right? So, because you help to amplify the voices of all of these creatives, and you're also a creative yourself. Um, there are so many people that don't realize and recognize that that's an aspect of themselves.
Yeah. Yes.
How do they?
And like everybody, like I think a lot of people have said, and I will say this as well, we are all creatives and we are all creatives in, and creativity doesn't need to look like fashion or,
Right.
you know, like I think we've always, it's like it's been centered around that,
Yeah.
but it's in food, it's in music, it's in writing, it's in poetry, it's in cooking, it's even in how dope you arrange your Excel sheet. Like that's your creative way of doing that. And I think we sometimes separate ourselves from the creative side, but we all have something creative, like gardening, planting, all these things. I mean, I am not a good gardener. I mean, I'm sometimes I look at my plants and I'm like, how are you surviving? And they do, and I'm like, I think, but yeah, but it's all these things that we kind of like don't tend to
Mm,
try and engage. And you, before we started this whole thing, I was telling you how I'm excited to be going back home.
yes.
And the word is going back home, in the sense of sometimes we need to go back home.
Mm,
Know, sometimes we are depleted and we are running on fumes and we are feeling like we are not within ourselves and we need to go back home.
mm,
And
mm,
going back home sometimes is going back to like touching the soil. It is going back into the thing that makes you use your hands.
mm.
It does not even have to be perfection. I think when you're creating, it doesn't have to be, this is a work of art that I'm going to sell.
Right.
It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be that guy. It makes you use your hands, it makes you think different, it makes you explore, it makes you create and disorganize, and it makes you basically fuck it up. Just
Yeah.
a because
Make
sometimes
it
we
messy.
fuck up.
Yes.
Sometimes without the intention of creating perfection.
Right. And
Just
don't you think that that's also part of the expression,
yes,
right?
yes,
It has to be
yes,
a little like edge sometimes of just,
yes,
I'm gonna just like F this
yes.
stuff up right now.
And that's it. It's that we need to, again, I think it goes back to, again, to like giving yourself affection and be like, you know, I'm just gonna try make this weird meal that I'm just gonna make out of love with no, just that.
Yep. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
With no intention of it being a work of art, but you finishing doing whatever it is that you're doing, writing the poem that you're writing, journaling, whatever it is that you're writing down, and just feeling like, oh, that feels good.
Yeah, it totally feels good. And I was more so at a very young age, I was very expressive. I was very artistic, and it was more mixed media. It was more, charcoal and paint. And so I just would create these things. And my very good friend, who we're still friends with each other, all of these years later, um, we would express through fashion a lot, right? Where we would go into New York City and we would just go to all of these like cool stores and like piecemeal stuff together and then take it home and like pull it apart and sew it back together again and then wear it to school the next day. So we were each other's kind of confidence booster to try all of these new things, right? But I remember I would make earrings, right? I would just take paint and um, let it dry and then cut it and like wire it and and wear it, and this was in the early 80s, right? So at a time where um I guess there's always that ability for expression, but like it was definitely, things were very kind of symmetrical, right? And so we were asymmetrical, and I was really exploring that. And so I had less of a filter then, and somehow I started to filter myself. That's where I found more of the word, right? Where then it was something that I could write and express, but then keep it to myself.
Yes.
And now not, because it's, I'm now publishing stuff. So I agree with you too, in the sense that you do have to come back home,
Yeah.
you know, and you've spoken in so many ways that like we can take this metaphorically, right? So you're being very literal with like, you're going back home. You are
Yeah.
literally going back home, but it's
Yeah.
also very metaphorical.
Yes, as well, because I need to go back home. What I'm trying to do is by my and I was thinking I was and like because I was setting my intention and I was okay, and I going back home to shed.
Yeah.
I have has because we we pack things and we have Macs and all these things and we have badges and all these things as life goes every single day as years goes. So I'm going back home, obviously to eat and enjoy family, but I'm also going back home to shed and get a new skin and see things clearer and newer and fresher. So I am sort of like, it's sort of like when you go inside the ocean and you dunk yourself and you come out again. And it's sort of like a cleansing for me. So I am going back home in two different ways, in
Mm.
both as a cleansing and shedding, and also just going back home as well, because I'm going back home. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and sometimes we, when you the other way that I also go back home, which is weird because I think I sometimes I like I don't sew.
Mm.
I I don't do any of that. What I will do, and this is like a trick I tell people when they're trying to figure out their style, is sometimes you've got to sit with your clothes.
Ooh.
Because what we do is we buy all this very, very many clothes, and our closets are filled with so many clothes. Yet sometimes we wake up in the morning and we're like, "Ugh, I have nothing to wear."
Yeah. Yeah.
Two, you probably have nothing to wear for two reasons. A, the person you have become, you have outgrown
Mm.
what it is. The way that you're seeing yourself is not represented in the clothes that you have.
Mm. Mhm.
So every time you open the closet, you're just like, I have nothing to wear. You have nothing to wear because everything is not a representation of how you want to tell the world about who you are. Because each and every time we evolve and each and every time we are trying to tell a different story.
Yes.
Yes. And sometimes the clothes are sort of like the tools in which you tell the story. And so if you don't have the tools to tell your story, so every time you open the closet and you just be like, I have nothing to wear. And
Mhm.
so sometimes it's because of that, or sometimes they're just clothes. And you need to be clothes for me are not just random things. They're like your friends. And, so
Yeah.
I sit in communion with them. I do when I'm bored in the house. I'm like, let me go see those clothes and see what's up. And I just like take everything down. And I'm like in a fresh state because I'm not going anywhere. I just want to see them. And then I'm like, oh my God. Oh, I've never seen this cat in a long time. And then this cat now tells me, oh, you should wear me. And then I wear it. And then I'm like, and then I see another top. And so now I start playing. You know, the art when we used to play dress up when we were small,
Yeah.
we need to play dress up again. I think we are not playing dress up enough.
No, you're right. You're
Yeah,
right.
we're not playing dress up. We wake up in the morning and we're rushing somewhere. We're trying to go, oh my God, this. And then you realize, oh, I have like thousands of clothes I never wear. Why? Because you have not sat with them and realize that you can breathe new life. And this I'm saying because it also goes back to sustainability, which is something that I care about.
Yes, 100%. I was
Yes,
just thinking that because it does
yes,
comes back to sustainability, which also kind of goes back to something that we had talked about in the beginning of the conversation, which is just like, um, there probably in the United States more so than other places. Like if you were to go to the supermarket or to the not supermarket, to the general market, right? Any of the major stores, it's the color of the season. It's the
Yes.
style of the season. And it's so you go from store to store and it's a variation of the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Which dictates, it's almost like it limits and it dictates it. It almost, it forces is a little bit of a strong word, but it does force you to kind
Yeah.
of have to choose, right? So you lose the ability for options. So one of the ways, and I love this, a lot of many of my clients, they choose sustainable fashion and ethical fashion. And so they seek out places that help to support that, right? And so you are going to find then things that are more standouts, right? And then you get to play with it. And the other thing that I loved that you said is that you get to sit with your clothes, right? And you get to sit with these garments, and I think that that's also such an important piece for most of us, because we're not forming relationships with people in the way that we need to form relationships. We're not present, right?
No.
If it doesn't give us that instant like fix or like solution, then we think it's worthless.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
but if we sit with our clothing, we're
Yeah.
actually forming a relationship on
Yeah.
some level with those clothes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're not saying like, you're going to do something for me, but you're saying, how can I take this feeling of being imprisoned, right? Or having nothing, to realizing how like it's just all up here or in here, that like we can do something, right? We can do something here. We can create something. We can um morph it into something that I feel I'll feel better, or I feel like I will be understood when I walk out into the
Yeah.
world, right? Um, that's so important, because I think that, you know, like most things, there's such a dichotomy where it's meant to be liberating in an expression, it can be very confining,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
We don't
My
have
God.
that
You have
perspective.
no idea.
I don't. I mean, I have my own perspective, but like I can't imagine coming from your lens, because you
Yeah.
have such a warm, open, non-judgmental lens, right? So then that automatic, when we don't have the tension of our own judgments, then all of a sudden, where do they just kind of come falling out, like they're all hiding behind the door, and then Koya opens the door and like everything just comes falling out. So I'm sure you hear everything, right?
I do. I really do. But then again, that's why I think that's why I like when people sit and play with their clothes, because you know how we buy clothes in a very interesting way. It's like, oh, I'm going to a wedding. Oh, let me go buy a new dress. I'm going to a birthday party. Let me go buy a new dress. I'm going for vacation. Let me buy a new dress. And we buy all this so many clothes. And my biggest pet peeve is having so many clothes and not wearing them. That's like the one thing I'm just like, why? Like, why, what is it? Why are we accumulating so much and then you just wear it once? And I think because we really don't have an understanding of we to remove things outside of their context. And it is and I had a chat with a lady that we were with, and they were like, well, I bought a dress and I was wearing it to I was gonna wear it to a wedding, but I started thinking like, well, how do I wear it somewhere else? And I was like, well, the idea is when you bought it in your mindset, you're buying it as a wedding dress. So every single time you see it, you're seeing it as a wedding dress. What you need to do is remove the mindset that this is a wedding dress and take it into a different context. And then that opens the possibilities and the way in which you can dress up. So then when you have all these clothes in your closet that you're like, oh, I'm not sure, then it goes back again to creativity, which is like, ooh, how can I reimagine to wear this in a very interesting and unusual and probably a me kind of way? So liberation, creativity, freedom, non-confinement, and using each and every single thing.
Yes, I completely agree with that. I love that. And I had to mute myself because I have like a siren going off. And I'm like saying yes, yes. And I'm like, oh, I'm muted. And so now everybody's going to hear the siren. I agree. I love that. And so it's like on the one hand, if somebody buys it something for one reason, right, and then they wear it for the wedding, and then they stick it in the back of the closet, right, then they're waiting for something or never to wear. So then why, if that is the potential, that you wouldn't want to modify it, right? That you wouldn't want to just take it and turn it into something else. It doesn't mean that you have to wear it exactly as it is and as you purchase it. It's just like you grow, you can allow those things to grow with you. And that's where that beauty of expression and creativity can come in. And if you have that naturally yourself, then that's where community comes in too, right?
Yeah,
So you can
exactly.
friend, you can have fun, you can just, you could, we're all, I think, seeking community so much now.
Mhm.
And we think it has to be this really big thing. But many times I think it's just, instead of going out, instead of, having some sort of kind of more official fancy thing, you could just say, hey, why don't you bring 3 dresses out of your closet
Uh,
over to my house, four people, and let's like play around and figure this out.
yes, I go to this wonderful event in Denver every single year. And I was thinking about if I've had any shopping. Oh my God, the lighting just came through. It looks so good. And that's like the place where I do like most of my shopping. And because I was like, oh my God, Koya, you have not bought anything new for like since January, and I was so happy about myself, and I was forcing myself to like look at things differently. But this event, it's like it's a swap, it's a clothing swap, and this lady started it. It was like a bunch of just a few people, and now it's grown, and now it's like my mecca that I have to go to every January. So like during the whole year, I'm just constantly putting clothes that no longer like I'm like, you know what? I have evolved in this clothes and not telling the story of who I am. I just place them and then I go to this clothing swap, and everything is just we all come. It's like a bunch of amazing women, just so many, like from different ages, just like come and descend upon this like humongous mansion, and we're just like running around, just like getting clothes, and then it's so interesting because you look across the room and there's someone over there just like looking at us at a skirt that she just gave up, and they're so excited and so delighted about it. They're like, oh my God, I look so good. And you're like, that feeling of somebody else having something else and me getting something else and not having, because it's you don't have to pay anything. The entrance is just this, bring your clothes, and
Wow.
it's like this great sense of community
Mhm.
where we're just like all, 1 month's treasure, just like shopping within each other's closet. And I've always said this: fashion exists in community. When you're getting ready to go to a resort, to a vacation with your girlfriends, you're always like, yo, what are we wearing? What are you wearing? What did you buy? That's how fashion happens. Fashion is like this whole thing. So you go into these places and people are just so happy, and people have given up their clothes, people are getting new clothes, and it's just this nice sense of feeling that community has been established through, we don't know one another, but we just see one another on that one day.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So you can kind of like
Yeah.
look forward to seeing everybody
Yes. And
and
I get my clothes for the rest of the year from that place. Like I don't do any shopping. Most of my clothes are like somebody just came and like, I don't want this anymore. I'm like, I like this. I came with stuff I don't like. And that's where I get everything from. Like most of my pieces. And everybody's like, where did you get this from? Like, oh, there's a styling clothing shop every year that I go to. It's like $3. And
I,
and I'm helping people, I'm helping the planet. I don't know.
yeah,
I like it two for two.
yeah, right. I mean, we do overcomplicate things, don't we?
We really do. Nothing is that. It's never that. But I think sometimes I tell people it's probably my Kenyan mentality. It's my African mentality. But like everything is okay. Nothing is that hard. We're not curing anything here. Okay, it's fashion. We're supposed to have fun
Fun.
it. You're supposed to try it on and be like, I don't like this. Like playing dress up. That whole thing, I don't think we get so caught up in life and we caught up in the most in the things that, oh my God, I need to finish this, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do, and then we need to give ourselves joy. We have a saying in Swahili, which is raha jipe mwenyewe, which is joy, give it to yourself.
Oh, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This conversation has been so wonderful to hear because it's like what our own inner selves need to hear so many
Yeah.
times. And I think that in a world where many of us are so programmed, and rightfully so, the giver is always the receiver, right? When we're serving and whatever, but we have to come to a place of love, honoring, sacredness, acceptance, and joy within ourselves. And you know that it's something that if we don't do that first, then nothing else is really going to be memorable. We're not going to be able to really know that we had those other joyous experiences. You can do a million wonderful good deeds every single day, but if you don't see the value of your own self and honor your own self, you're going to feel empty.
Yeah.
So you can feel joy. It's okay for you to give yourself something to have fun with, to experience, to play. And then from there, you can see the joy in other people and also allow yourself to feel that joy too. And it's so simple, but it's so missing for many people. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. It's not just in the United States, it's anywhere.
Yeah. Yes.
So, oh my goodness, this has
I mean,
been,
I dress like this to give myself joy.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And like I was like, oh, but I wore the necklace, and I was looking at myself in the mirror, and I was like, something is missing. And then randomly, I was like, oh, I haven't worn you in a while, and then I put it on, and I was like, ah. This is complete.
Yes.
It was, I think it was probably 2 minutes, but I had so much fun trying to figure out. So that whole part of creativity that came in there. I was like, oh, that felt like a chemical reaction, because styling is always like a chemical reaction. You're trying to find balance, you're trying to not put too much, you're trying to see how it works well together and how it marries. Although it looks very off, you're trying to see what you can input in there to like complete everything. So that's where my creativity comes in. And then I have 1 minute of joy in which I do that. And then it's complete. And I'm like, today's going to be such a great day. I'm telling you, this is one body, and we're gonna do it. We're gonna have fun. This is the moment
That's
when no
right.
one's coming to get you. You're just gonna sit with yourself and actually be in communion with self.
Yeah. Oh my
Then
goodness.
you can venture out to the world with all the things that it's about to throw at you.
100%. Yeah. Because it can also be seen as a little bit of armor, right? A little bit of buffer as well. I think back to my grandmother, and she lived alone for many years and in a very, very big house. And
Yeah,
every once in a while I would go to visit her. Do you know that
yeah.
she literally had on stockings, high heel shoes? She was dressed
Oh, I love that.
every day.
Love that.
She had, jewelry from all over the world, and she had a whole room with shoes, right? That she it was just, and I don't think she ever in her entire life, maybe when she was a kid, maybe ever wore pants,
Oh, wow.
right? Like she just
Wow.
such a fashionista. And I think back to that and I thought, I always would regard her as like this fancy person,
Yeah.
but now I think about it, and on days where, I get rushed and, and it's easy to be lazy because especially when you're on Zoom or whatever. And then I think, no, I'm going to do this for myself. Right.
Uh, it is
Yeah.
about yourself. But I think for your grandma, it was an act of self-love. You've got to be radical in your self-love.
Mm,
Yeah,
yes.
you've
Yeah.
got to be, I mean, we talk a lot about self-love and all of these things, but you've got to be really radical in it, because sometimes life can happen and then it's taken away from you, but you could just be like, no, I refuse to not show up the way I want to show up. And I think for her it was, I want to feel fabulous, even if I live in this house all by myself, and I will feel beautiful.
Yes. Yeah. I completely agree with that. And I just think about some of my friends that I have and some of the things that like they have found that really make them feel that way. One of my friends has a Chanel, I forget, number 46 or whatever, a red lipstick, and does not go a day without wearing that. It doesn't matter, t-shirt, shorts, or dress,
Yes,
or whatever, right?
that
It's
is the
always
thing.
always
Yeah.
that. And I'm just like, that is so, I love that. For me, it's even when I go to the gym, I always wear lip gloss, right? Like it's always, like I always so I feel dressed no matter what it's.
It's, that's what I'm telling you. It's a radical, it's the thing. I'm like, I will not, because it makes you, and if you, it just makes you feel like whole.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I've gone and I've almost walked in without having it on, I'm like, oh, something's missing. And I have to go back to the car and like put my lip gloss on.
I know. There, someone tells you, let's just go. You're like, no, I need it.
Yes, exactly. Got to put the lippy on, right? Like you have to do it.
Serious business.
Very serious. Always the lippy.
You gotta be radical in your self-love.
That's right. That's right. And
What?
I'm
Love you.
definitely, and I think my daughters will consent to that. Like I am definitely radical with some of the things of self.
I don't know why we are dying.
Oh man, because it's so good. It's just so good. It's so liberating. It's so wonderful, and you're just so wonderful, Koya. You are just such a bright light in the world, and anybody who you grace the presence of is just so fortunate, because you are really you help to shift. You literally help to shift the vibration. You really do, and not just with each individual, but I can feel the movement that you're creating. I can feel it already, what you have created. And it's just, it's palpable and it's wonderful and it's beautiful. And I love that you're doing it from honoring your home, honoring the home inside of you, but honoring also Kenya, and realizing that you are in such a beautiful position to be able to help to bring this forward. And I'm so glad that, you're bringing this forward, because I know that there are many people in our community now, welcome to the community, that need this, that want this, that are seeking this, that didn't know this, right? And so just a few recaps. I love the sustainability aspect of fashion that you're bringing forward. And I think it's encouraging people to go to thrift stores and consignment shops and create their own clothing swaps where they could do something right with friends, and to realize that that isn't icky. That doesn't mean it's a social status thing or whatever. It's actually like good for the earth, good for the world, right? And so if
Good
you
for the world.
if you
And
are in a swap, right, I'm gonna want some of your stuff, because like I want more of that.
I get good shit, man.
Right. Like because I want more of that, right? Like, so it's just it's so wonderful, but I also think just the threading of joy through everything has just been so wonderful to hear, and it's just such there really needs to be nothing else,
Yeah.
right? Just
Yes.
don't make it complicated.
God. Yeah.
So where can people best find you? Because I know that they're going to want more of you.
Yes. Well, you can find me on my Instagram at Let Me Show You Different, and TikTok as that as well. On my website, you can reach out to me at Koya at letmeshowyoudifferent.com. Join the mailing list as well. I talk about different authors. I talk about different African creatives, authors, filmmakers, designers. I introduce people to amazing fashion as well. And if you're listening and you are a buyer, I work with all these brands to give them a retail channel into the US market. So I'm always trying to stalk them into like all over the country. So if you're a buyer, please reach out so I can sort of like introduce you, and you can introduce the world as well to this amazing brands.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to forward it to some of my friends who I know are in the industry, because I think that this would be a wonderful connection.
Yeah.
And some who are very, very heavily involved in ethical fair trade and environmental sustainability and fashion. So I think that's so wonderful. And I just want to thank you so much for being here today and for this conversation. I just want to thank you for being bold and being you, and just not that you needed any validation, but I'm just so grateful.
What did they say? You always have to hold a mirror up sometimes so we can see ourselves.
I'm holding
No,
it up.
yes, I am very, very grateful to have had a chat with you, to have been communion with you. You know, I always say the words that come out of our mouth is so incredibly important every single time. Before I started this talk, I was like, okay, may the words that come through me, may they be a blessing, may they just resonate. And whatever I say, let just be a positive thing. I think the words that we say are powerful, and the time is such a powerful thing. And whatever someone hears just always has to be a blessing in their lives. And I take that very seriously in any time that I have to open my mouth to say anything. So thank you so much for what you're doing, for healing, for getting people to thriving, and for opening doors to hear people's conversation.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. And you definitely blessed us with everything that you've said today. And until the next time, thank you everybody for listening. And if this is your first time finding the podcast, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a rating, and also, leave comments, because we both love engagement and love to hear more of what you're thinking beyond the conversation. So please make sure that you reach out to Koya as well. And until the next time, everybody, peace and love, and be well.